Years ago, when I was teaching about RPA, people would describe RPA as dumb. But that's not the way innovation happens. Innovation spikes with noise early and then happens more gradually over time. I loved creating videos and content. I was one of the earlier ones in our industry to do it.
What qualities do you believe that are essential for leaders in this space, this automation and AI space?
That's a good question. I am paying a tax as an end user for their innovation experiments, right? They decided to do something new and shiny. It sucks and it makes my life worse. And you're killing it, right? So you're able to speak to the folks that you've spoken to. You're building your expertise and your knowledge base, also building your brand, which is a useful thing. And I mean, how much fun is that?
Very special guest with me, 𝐻𝐮𝐫. Over 20 years of experience into digital operations, RPA, intelligent automation, and future of work. 𝐻𝐮 is a seasoned leader, innovator. He authored quite a number of popular LinkedIn courses, co-authored Intelligent Automation book, and he co-founded Symphony Ventures. So 𝐻𝐮 is very passionate about transforming organizations with automation and empowering the work of future. So stay tuned to our insights and the discussions that we have with 𝐻𝐮 today. Welcome, 𝐻𝐮, on this podcast show. I'm excited to have you.
Thanks, Brenda. Great being here. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I am good. I am doing great. It's fun to talk about this stuff, and I've seen some of your shows, and you do a great job, and you've spoken to some real thought leaders in the space. So I'm excited to be on the list.
Awesome. I mean, it's my pleasure to have you. You are well-known personality in this space, but why don't you introduce yourself to the audience who are just starting in automation space?
Yeah, that'll be my pleasure. Let's see. As you said, it goes back quite a few years. My background was in consulting and outsourcing. And I went into consulting originally out of college because I wanted to travel the world. And so I thought that was the best way to do it, was to go into consulting. And I joke that I went into consulting and got to see all parts of New Jersey. And I was based in New York City, and every project I had was in New York City, or was in New Jersey. And so then I actually followed a mentor of mine in about 2008 into 2007, 2008 into outsourcing. And that's when I got to start seeing the world. And that was an amazing journey. I spent about a decade in outsourcing, got to see all of the areas and epicenters of talent. So I spent a lot of time in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, in India, in China, and the Philippines. And you couldn't be in outsourcing back in sort of 2013-14 timeframe without I guess in an innovation role. I had a role that was focused primarily on transformation and innovation at the time. And you couldn't be in that role without hearing about automation and about this new concept that didn't yet have the name robotic process automation. But that's how I stumbled into it. And that's sort of the beginning of the rest is history part of my story. So that's my background.
Awesome. That's great. I mean, you are one of the early adopters into this field.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to keep going and elongate it, but it was 2013 that I and some colleagues got to play with this stuff, and we got a kick out of it. And there were enough reasons in the market for us to wake up and realize this is going to be something. We should go spend our time here. And so we did. And as you said, we co-founded a company called Symphony that was one of the very earliest consultancies and implementation boutiques in the automation space. And that was an absolute blast. One of the greatest experiences in my career. And I still think back on it fondly.
That's great. So could you please tell more about your journey into the world of automation and AI? What initially drew you into this field?
Yeah, I think ultimately, again, my role was a global head of innovation at the time in a call center business. And it was all exciting, and I wanted to do shiny things and chase innovation and this automation concept. presented itself. And so we started playing with it. And just by luck, we had a client that was open to the idea. They were open to letting us experiment with it. And it was in a supply chain order management scope of work. It was a computer manufacturing company. And so my colleague and I set up, to our knowledge, the very first center of excellence in the BPO industry in RPA. It was a big team of about 50 people in Chennai. We were playing with it, proved the concept to ourselves. And then what happened was sort of a fascinating kind of product market fit situation where as we were successful and as sort of the word got out and we were talking about it, a lot of people would approach us and would say, look, I don't really want your arbitrage, your lower cost people. I want to know what you know about this automation trend. And that's what's really exciting to us. And so, you hear this enough times, and then you realize there's something going on. And so that's when we left our safe day jobs and started an RPA consultancy, just because we sort of felt that amount of energy and interest starting to build. And so we were lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and took advantage of it. And that's when we started Symphony in late 2014.
Okay. That's great. So, what were the initial challenges? I mean, you started with yourself, with a co-founder, or you started full-fledgedly with a team of developers or something like that?
No, I mean, you're lucky if you can start with a big team. It was 4 co-founders, and we started. All we really had was an idea and a trust in one another. Effectively, it was we had worked together. All 4 of us had worked together for quite a few years, so we knew each other. We knew our strengths. We knew our complements to one another's strengths, and we knew that this concept worked because we had already tested it out. And so that was the beginning. And so in the very earliest days, it was just the 4 of us. One of our earliest client, our very first client, the guy who became our head of sales, Scale Baker, and I were on the ground at a client with our other co-founder, David Brain. David ended up being our COO. He was the head of operations. He was the process brain. And so Pascal and I were the business analysts, much to his chagrin, because you don't want me as your business analyst. I might have been good at it at one point, but it was choppy. But so we were rolling up our sleeves and doing everything. And then as success starts to go your way, then you're able to grow a team. And so we were able to grow a team relatively quickly. And that adventure in earnest as a standalone private company, because we sold the company in 2018. So we were a startup for 4 years, and we went from the 4 of us to about 250 of us by the time we sold. So we were able to grow relatively quickly, again, based on good timing and just excellent delivery and execution. Much of it to the credit of our COO co-founder, our really strong operations, our incredible go-to-market with our sales team, and some really strong partnerships.
So how long does it take for you guys to get first client? Like, since you...
it's interesting. So you're scrapping together clients based on relationships. And so our first client, and I think maybe our third client, were both because of a friend of mine who I'd worked together with in a prior company years and years before. And the friend of mine knew somebody on the board of this small medical billing company. And so that was our very first client, was a medical billing company based out of St. Louis. And they were our patron saints. I mean, they were the ones who took a chance on us, and we showed up and worked our absolute tails off and did our best for them. But that was an adventure. I mean, they were outstanding to work with us, and we had a good time. We had a great relationship with them. There were some funny stories from those early days with that team, but yeah, that's how it went. And then we sort of bumped into another connection. There was one of our connections to a very large U.S. bank was through a relationship my wife had with somebody who worked in the right place at the bank. And so it's not until you start to pick up momentum and then start to formalize your sales team and then your pipeline that you actually start to collect any sort of structure of a top of funnel into it's scrappy. It's who you know, but it worked.
That's cool. That's cool to hear. So since you have worked many years now, Louis, you carry a rich experience, right, into this automation space. So could you please share some of the common challenges that enterprises face while starting their journey with automation, or rather, I would say digital transformation?
Yeah, it's this is a lot of us with experience in the trenches say this now, and I firmly believe it and have said it all along, this success or failure in this space has little or nothing to do with the technology. It has almost everything to do with the communication, the change management, and just the people involved. And so early to this day, so not even early on, there's just sort of shocking statistics about the number of digital transformation programs that fail. I mean, it's 75% is sort of an average number of ones that fail. And it's not because the tools don't work. The tools do what they're capable of doing, and if you choose to throw them at that scope of work, then they'll work. But a lot of it was misplaced expectations, firmly opinionated about how we as an industry didn't help ourselves by coming out with some real fantastic over-hype and over-promise about how easy some of these tools were, how completely capable they were, in the light of a really complex architecture. Enterprises are just complex. They're messy. Their systems are old. Their data is not clean. There's just a spaghetti of sort of systems and integrations, and yet we oversimplified it. And so I think that got in the way of a lot of potential success. Is we collectively as an industry, and we at Symphony were pretty good about not delivering too much hype, because we really did want to see projects succeed, and they don't succeed if you overpromise and you know that you can't deliver. So I think that's been one of the biggest issues. It's just expectations, and then really as a project too. And I see this now. I see this to this day when I talk to people. It's a clarity around the purpose of what you're doing. And why are you doing these projects? In the earliest days, people would say, we want to do a proof of concept, and we want to do it in this area. We want to choose this scope of work. And we would say, okay, well, that's sort of a small scope of work, and it might not, in the grand scheme, prove to have a really meaningful ROI. And they would almost always say, that's fine. This is not about an ROI. We want to just see if this works. We want to test to see if it works in our systems. We want to get an understanding of what it does. And so invariably, you would do that proof of concept, and they'd come back and they'd say, yeah, it worked, but the ROI is just not there. And you'd say, that was not the purpose. That wasn't the purpose of what we just did. And to this day, I see that, whereas people still don't know what they don't know, and they still want to test it, and then they come back and hold it to a whole other set of standards that they didn't set out on that journey trying to prove. And that will forever be a challenge. I think that's just human nature, but that's also was an issue early days, and continues to be an issue to this day.
Okay. Yeah, I do agree with you. So any tips, any workarounds, maybe if how they can overcome few of these challenges? It's not possible to overcome all of these, but any tips at your fingertips, if you want to suggest? Yeah.
I mean, education and honesty. I mean, education as far as alignment and understanding around vocabulary and a set of capabilities, the purpose, the outcome, why you're doing what you're doing. And
that was quick and precise.
Education also makes you a discerning consumer of this stuff, because right now, especially now, we sort of went into a hype dip, and then we come back to AI is a term that it is resilient. right? It has been around since the 70s or even earlier, and it just keeps coming back into our lives. And every time it does, everyone's just very excited about all of the potential that it can have. And then they're disappointed again. And that's happening now. Generative AI is amazing. It can do some truly mind-blowing things. I was blown away 2 years ago when it came out. But also you have to look at it pragmatically and say, what is it you're trying to do and achieve? And what is meaningful and valuable within an enterprise? And can it do that? And in many cases, it cannot, at least not yet. And so we're back at articles coming out, as we speak, about how the impact and the outcomes and the capabilities of this magical technology aren't improving productivity, aren't creating value, and in fact are potentially creating risks and exposure to various problems.
There's a term going on right these days since the white paper was published on Agentic Process Automation, APA. So there are a lot of discussions and a lot of articles going around the clock, mostly on LinkedIn, right? So what are your views on Agentic Process Automation workflows?
Yeah, so I think this is fascinating. I'll first admit that I've only, I'm not in the trenches working with one of these technologies, and I'm not part of one of these highly funded startups that's professes to doing it. I will add that I'm an early investor and an advisor to one of the firms that I believe is leading the space, and I hope wins some part of the space. So I'll come back to that in a moment. But that was one of the earliest realizations to me in the early days of generative and these large language models, is they could do magical things. Effectively, to use the framework from my intelligent automation book, work is easily described by looking at human capabilities, right? The capabilities of a human. You show up at work and you bring certain capabilities with you. You bring your eyeballs, you bring your ears, your mouth, you bring your fingers and your brain. And that's what you bring to work. And so you can compare those capabilities to the technical capabilities that are emulating the things you do. So RPA was mostly emulating the work you do with your fingers. It was rule-based, it was transactional, it was clicking and dragging and opening and closing and etc. Intelligent document processing, or its predecessor, character recognition, was really a combination of your eyeballs looking at things and some brain activity matching it to meaningful, context. I know what I'm looking at, and I know what it means. I know how to interpret it. And voice recognition is your ears, and then your brain is more of the sort of deeper, esoteric, deep learning, pattern recognition, pattern mining, etc. Large language models came out, and they were spectacular, but if you look at them at the surface, they are a lot of brain, but no finger, right? They can write you a blog, they can write you some code, but they can't really do anything with it because they lack the fingers. So this concept of large action models or large agentive models, agents, seems to be a combination of brain and finger. So it is LLM plus RPA. That is thrilling. That's really, really exciting if it's actually real. And so then what you come up against is, where is it happening? And this could be a bold, and I'm happy to be told it's an incorrect statement, but I don't know that it is happening. Right? You've got some very well-financed startups, some of whom are on a meteoric rise as far as fundraising, but you don't see anything coming out of them. One of the companies I was watching sort of the most closely, literally 2 days ago, just published a memo on their website saying the entire leadership team's leaving, and they're leaving some of the technical people to sort of keep the lights on. But they literally raised like $300 million 4 or 5 months ago, and they were already shutting their doors, and they were making a lot of noise about sort of an agentive concept. When you're old and grumpy like me, and you watch hype cycles of AI that overpromise and then underdeliver, part of me thinks agentive is the early stages of an overpromise, underdeliver. But the hopeful side of me is this is finally combining some really cool brain activity with the LLMs and some useful finger-hand activity with the RPA, with constraints, right? This is still like, are there APIs? We can do that.
Got it.
Which, if you're a grizzled old RPA veteran, APIs is missing the point, because most of RPA had to survive in an environment where there were not APIs. That was the entire challenge we had to solve for in 2014, 2015. And so you're changing the rules of the game if you say, like, if it's APIs, then we can do RPA plus we can do some creative thinking. And because I have a lot of opinions on this topic, I'll continue with this last point, which is years ago, when I was teaching about RPA, people would describe RPA as dumb. They would say that it's not this smart AI that can like learn and figure out and self-heal and evolve. It's just dumb. And the way I would relate it to the challenge at hand is I would go back to my outsourcing days. I would go back to my BPO days. And I would say, we would take over 500 roles in a finance and accounting department, and we'd move them to Bangalore. And no one ever gave me 500 FTEs worth of work to move someplace else with the directive, Ian, I want each of those 500 people to creatively handle that task the best way they see fit. That was never the discussion. The structure in the contract was they need to execute a task as per our codified, process flows to a level of quality at a level of speed that we have contracted you to deliver. Yeah. So you didn't need those people to be flexible and smart. Smart, fine, but like flexible and creative and self-healing, like you didn't need that from them.
Yeah, and not all the jobs are creative. Not all jobs need creativity. There are some jobs
don't.
Yeah,
most jobs don't. And so Gentive, being flexible in so much as it identifies that a shipping address has moved from one side of a form to another, okay, that's some flexibility. But if it decides how best to approve mortgages, that's not going to fly. Right? And so this Agentive is fascinating. I think it's amazing. I've been covering what I'm able to pick up from just doom scrolling LinkedIn. I think it could be game changing. I invested in a company called 𝐻𝐿𝐴 because I believe in their leadership team. I believe in their tech savvy, and I think they can really make a dent in this universe with an Agentive product. But it's still really early. And time will tell. I think we need to sort of set our sights on achievable bite-sized chunks of work, rather than saying that we're going to have agents that do everything and they'll all be creative and etc. Because we don't need that, and I'm not convinced that most are going to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, I would say
there's a lot of words, but I'm fascinated by this particular topic area right now, and there's just not enough grist for any sort of mill. Every article is the same article because there's just not enough data.
No, I think opinion do matters, and if it's coming from you, that's the purpose of this podcast, right? So it's great to hear from one of the experts, right?
Well, and anybody who's listening, if that sounded like I'm full of crap, let me know. Please find me on LinkedIn. Tell me that. I am happy to hear that and learn from others who are at the coalface and are doing this more, because that's the only way that we're all going to advance in this industry.
Sure. And for those who have yet to read Intelligent Automation book, right, which Ian has co-authored, so I'll paste the link in the description. You can find that book and definitely give it a read. I myself have read it, and it's one of the best.
One of our proudest moments is that we wrote it nearly 3 years ago now, and we referenced GPT-3 in it, which was really, really early to be doing that. So we were very proud of ourselves. And there are efforts going on right now to try to update the book and add just all of the different things that have happened so quickly in the last few years since we published.
So that's a real challenge with these kind of tech books, right? It gets outdated so fast that it's hard to keep updating those books.
Yeah. And And there's some trends that people like trends and exciting new things. I mean, it gets the blood flowing. And so we went through a lot of them over the last few years. I mean, we selectively forget, but I mean, how much of us spent time trying to figure out what crypto and NFTs were for and what, blockchain was going to do to the business. And there's a whole bunch of those trends that, they're still percolating in the background some, but they certainly did not make the impact that some people said that they would. But that's not the way innovation happens. Innovation spikes with noise early and then happens more gradually over time.
Agree to that. It's time to move to a rapid fire. I want you to be real quick on answering these questions. I have got a few questions for you.
7, toaster. Oh, I'm sorry. Ask the questions first.
What's one thing that you do every day that contributes to your success?
I think I've already referred to it. It's doom scrolling LinkedIn. Actively reading everything that my friends and industry colleagues put out in LinkedIn. I do that instead of actually getting real work done. But it is a value. Sorry, this is not rapid fire. I've made the answer too long and slow. Doom scrolling LinkedIn. Final answer.
Okay. So what's hobby you enjoy outside of your work?
Outside I have to say my family, because it's both true and it also makes me sound like I'm not addicted to work. Spending time with my family.
Good. Your favorite AI innovation of all time till date?
Spam filters.
Great one. If not automation leader, what alternate career path would you have chosen?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I really like storytelling and teaching, and I'm fascinated by the level of quality people have reached in social media content. So maybe a YouTube star is what I'd like to do.
Not bad. Can you recommend a book that has a big impact on your career?
On my career? It's a good one. I was really turned onto the automation space by some stuff Martin Ford wrote. He wrote Lights in the Tunnel and then Rise of the Robots. I thought those were interesting. There's boring stuff like Balanced Scorecard and In Search of Excellence. But I think it's more, there's more dynamic content in the sort of like the newsletters and the blogs that are coming out that I spent a lot more time reading those, just because there's some smart people in our industry and they've all got some really informed opinions. Blogs, experts blogs is my answer for my favorite book.
Okay, that's cool. With that, we end this segment of rapid fire and we move on to a few of the more questions. Like I would...
They're getting harder? Are they going to get harder? Because
I mean, for you, it shouldn't be anything that is hard. So, would you like to share your experience of creating so many LinkedIn courses? How do you approach creating those courses? What was the process involved?
Yeah, I guess back to the YouTube answer. I loved creating videos and content. I was one of the earlier ones in our industry to do it. And so as Symphony was taking shape and as we were growing, what served us really well was sharing what we knew and educating. And we did it via LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. And at the same time, I was taking some courses on LinkedIn Learning. It was called Lynda at the time. And I took courses on like photography and stuff. It was just cool. It was really cool. And then I was at an outsourcing conference of all things, where all the cool kids hang out. And there was a content producer from LinkedIn Learning who was there, and she was, kind of just walking the floor, probably looking for inspiration is there content that we should bring into the LinkedIn library? And so I just bumped into her by dumb luck and was so excited. I couldn't stop talking. I showed that like I was posting videos on LinkedIn and I loved LinkedIn Learning and how exciting. And so sort of one thing led to another. And in about 2017, we started putting the plans together to create a course on RPA. And so that was my very first LinkedIn course, was introducing robotic process automation. And we refreshed it about a year and a half ago, but that one's been seen by like 250,000 people around the world. It's super rewarding just to still get people's notes that they're and by the way, having that course out there shows me that RPA is still alive and well. that many, many people in every industry, in every country around the planet are coming to the concept for the first time. They're hearing about the name for the first time. So you and I might think it's just old and tired and we're looking for a new term to call it. But it's still alive and kicking. And I believe that it's one of the most impactful classes of technology any enterprise can and should adopt. So after that one, sort of the ideas started rolling. The next class was RPA AI and Cognitive Tech for Leaders, which was actually the first course I wanted to film, which was sort of speaking to leadership and executives as far as how they should wrap their heads around this and how they should enable top-down mandate and sponsor work within enterprises. From there, I did process mining and process discovery. I did a conversational AI one. I did an intelligent automation class, and then one on case studies in RPA. And it's just a blast. I mean, I loved writing them. I believe two of them were filmed here, like at this desk in this because of COVID. All the rest were filmed in a studio in California. But some of them were far more lonely to sit here in your office late at night when your family's asleep, so it's quiet and record those things. But hundreds of thousands of people have found the courses. Some of them have found them useful, and it's just cool to be part of anyone's journey to developing their own skills to be able to compete in this future of work.
I know it takes huge efforts. I witnessed, I did one course for Udemy on TypeScript. It was a basic introductory 2 hours course, but it took me, more than 30 hours to record.
Yeah, the ratio of time to final output is extraordinary. From writing it and rewriting it and then saying it out loud and realizing all the words you just wrote are impossible to say in the order. And you're like, oh, I got to change that whole thing. And then for some of the earlier courses, we would do a studio shot. So we'd do live action where I was in this big studio, green screens behind me, all sorts of lights and cameras and everything. You were just shot. Your voice was gone. I mean, you were just drinking tons of tea and not talking if you didn't have to. But again, some of the most fun I've ever had. It's the LinkedIn Learning crew is just cool. There's so much fun to hang out with. And so, yeah, I'd be there every day of the year if they'd have me. But yeah, I think we do need more courses in this space. It's just a matter of getting back there and doing more.
Thanks for sharing your experience.
Yeah,
it was really good. Great to know what it takes, the entire background process in just launching a course, like making it live.
Yeah, and my courses aren't technical. There are some other experts out there that'll teach you how to use a tool. That's never been my wheelhouse. Mine's more of the strategy and the concept level. But you sort of need every one of those layers, and I like the ones I've done.
Okay, yeah. With that, with this topic, right? The next question came in my mind is what qualities do you believe that are essential for leaders in this space, this automation and AI space?
That's a good question. I think anyone in this space needs to respect the foundation stones on which this concept is built, and that is, again, back to my earlier statement about it not being technology. It is process and goal. What is the purpose of this? So every leader needs to be process and goal oriented, and most don't seem to be, unfortunately. And I was at an intelligent automation conference last year where everyone came up to me and said, our leadership, my boss, has told us to stop doing the RPA projects and we should turn all of our attention to doing ChatGPT, Gen AI projects. Like everything we're doing now is a Gen AI, ChatGPT project. That is not a leader with process and purpose in mind. That is a leader who is fascinated by the next shiny hammer that is floating around in the sky and announces to their team that they should go hunt for nails that hammer is good at hitting. And, I saw that happen back in the IBM Watson days. There's too much chasing of fads. And if you were sort of to stick to your knitting and stick to what is good for your end customer, your end consumer, and that could be an internal audience, it could be your employees. Your HR shared service function needs to be improved. Your employees are the end customer to this. That is what leaders need to focus on. And they have to have a really good BS filter because there's a lot of it floating around.
Yeah.
So to be able to know where to allocate the the precious resources, time and energy of their teams. And I will also say they need to be conscious of the fact that their decisions manifest as a customer innovation tax.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, let's take chatbots, for example. Chatbots traditionally, and even up to today, suck. They absolutely suck. Like, let's just not sugarcoat it. They're terrible. I mean, name me a service that you've logged into where a little box pops up and says, "How can I help?" And it doesn't. Just doesn't. It doesn't understand what you say. You start by saying, like, "Here's my issue. I bought this product number with this warranty number, and it's not working anymore." And then the next question from the chatbot is, "Hey, I'm here to help. What can I help you with?" And you're like, "I literally just told you." Right? And so I am paying a tax as an end user for their innovation experiments. Right? Mm-hmm. They decided to do something new and shiny. It sucks and it makes my life worse. And so leadership has to be really attuned to this customer innovation tax, because it's frustrating. And with large language models especially, it makes it very easy to do a lot of experiments and guinea pigging on your most valuable resource, the people who are paying you money. And so I think leaders need to be real pragmatic and careful about that.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Strong opinions about chatbots. Really.
It seems like you even had a very good experience.
You just go in loops, man. Just go in loops. My daughter has an iPad and a Logitech keyboard case. And these things notoriously break. But, kids use them all the time in school now. So, okay, they probably don't treat them very carefully. But we went and got a warranty through the store we bought it at, because we knew this. This was our third one we've gone through. So this time we bought it for that. In that case, I went into their chatbot and did everything I knew how to do to give it the information. And the chatbot just kept asking, "Do you have is it a tablet or is it a laptop computer you have?" I'm like, "No, I'm not talking about the tablet. I'm talking about the accessory to the tablet. And here's its product number and here's its full name from your website." It couldn't for the life of itself figure out what I was talking about. And it can't be that hard. And so I still have not solved that problem. This is weeks ago. I need to go into the store now. And so it was cute. They had an experiment. They have a chatbot. And this comes across in every airline interaction I've ever had, every telecom interaction I've ever had. It's just bank interaction. They've all launched them and none of them are good. And that's fine if I'm not important. But I would argue that in the act of paying them for a thing, I'm kind of relevant to their success and ongoing survival. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
So, moving on to the next question, Ian. So, with the latest developments, right, into the space, right, automation and AI. Apart from LinkedIn, we already know you have spoken it a couple of times also. Any resources or habits you would recommend to the professionals out there into this field, how they can stay up to date?
Yeah, I think tinker and experiment. I mean, I'm sort of found myself constantly playing with various tools. I mean, whether they be image generators or video generators or various different large language models. It just gives you the context and awareness that they exist. And then you've got to go to the world search engine, YouTube, and go find reasonable experts who show you how to experiment. Because progressively, the concept of the creator and the maker is, I think, going to define success in the industry. And I've become fascinated by the concept of the democratization of these capabilities. Because the trend from 10 years ago was the stuff is so easy that a business analyst can do it. That was straight up wrong. That was incorrect. They could not do it. As you progress forward, you've got low code and no code capabilities where tools are starting to get a little easier, a little bit more drag and drop, a little bit more visual, where they hide the code better. And so that invites more and more people to the table. and they can actually start to tinker and build with this stuff. And then you get to generative and this concept of effectively natural language programming, just speaking at it. And that brings almost everyone to the table, predicated on the fact that they have expertise and domain knowledge and an idea. You sort of need that. So, but if you really understand your space and you have an idea, then kind of the world's your oyster right now to tinker and play and see if you can design a better way to do whatever it is you do. Some, over the years, have started to call that the concept of a citizen development, or citizen data science, or citizen sort of application, or citizen automation. So citizen development is application, citizen automation is more of the RPA stuff, and citizen data science is more of the models and the dashboards and things. And that's an area that I've written several articles about. That I have a book coming out about this idea of a mass democratization that is going to empower a much, much larger percentage of the working world to start to do things. So back to the short answer to your question is leaders in the space should become those citizen developers themselves and persistently and constantly be testing out whatever's out there to have a sense of what the art of the possible is, because you better believe their teams are already doing it. And so they need to be able to walk that talk so that they can figure out how to enable their teams with the appropriate guardrails and governance so they don't go rogue and create all sorts of pain and bad things, but so you're tapping into all the ingenuity and domain expertise that your teams do have.
So basically you're trying to say, try their hands-on, like be on ground associated with the technology.
Yeah, and it's not easy, right? I understand they're busy with the day job, but so much of their day job is going to become corralling the innovation and the ingenuity that exists in their team in ways that were never before possible. And so the only way you do that is to roll up your sleeves and, kind of like in the old maker fairs and makers movement, you've got to be that for enterprise.
Thanks, Ian, for your recommendations.
I do want to start doing some more, just exploring and educating, right? Honestly, it's somewhat of a selfish act because it's just, first of all, I find it really fun, and second of all, it's how I learn, right? It just sort of examining something from all different sides and being able to tell those stories and share it, and so, for better or worse, you'll be seeing more of me.
That's great. And that's the idea I also started with on YouTube, like with the idea, like if I have to create video or share knowledge to the world, right? I will always keep on trying new stuff, new things, and that's how I would learn. That's a motivation to learn,
right? And you're killing it, right? So you're able to speak to the folks that you've spoken to. You're building your expertise and your knowledge base, also building your brand, which is a useful thing. And I mean, how much fun is that? I mean, we're on Zoom calls and things all day long anyway, so why not share some of those with folks? I mean, you're doing a great job, Dipendra, and I say keep it up, and if I can help in any way, let me know.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I mean, everything is secondary for me. I enjoy these conversations. I'm very passionate about sharing something new to the audience, which is a value add in the space. What value add I can do? That's how I look to it, and that's what motivates me and keeps me going even after my day job.
Yes, yeah, because it's going to be after your day job, and you're going to be exhausted, so you better like it, and you do. So there you go.
How has been your experience coming to this podcast and joining me?
It's been miserable. It is terrible. No, it's been fun. It's like I said, I saw some of your earlier podcasts, so. I knew I was in good hands. You had good questions, and it's fun to recap and share stories about my journey, and hopefully that's useful. And you're doing a great job of interacting with folks who've been in the trenches and have some opinions. And you're asking good questions and topical ones, right? Like agentic models. That's something we all need to get our heads around. So it's good that you're asking people, and you're asking the right people, because I think that the answer can't be it's magic, it's the future, it's going to do everything. I enjoyed myself. You did a great job, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast and giving valuable insights, opinions, recommendations. It's all great. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure, Dipendra. Thanks so much for having me.